Therapy and mental health care have become more accessible than ever. And while there are so many benefits to that, what are some of the downsides of it? That's what we're going to be diving into.
There's a big difference between weaponizing therapy and being the dangerous one that uses therapy for something versus the person who is dangerous because they have utilized a tool so well that they see through other people's BS. That's what we're also going to be talking about in this episode.
Hey everybody, it's Bianca.
Welcome back, Evolvers. It's Emilia. And
Emilia.
We're excited to talk to you about this one and have you join this conversation because therapy has been weaponized and you likely have experienced that. Also, disclaimer, my tongue is super tied today. Bianca and I have been hammering out episodes and this one, my goodness, she and I are about to get real excited on. So Bianca, please share the origin, where this one came from.
I have a client who found me on TikTok. So I post videos on TikTok, not as regularly as I should, but neither here nor there. I've been posting on TikTok. I've gotten a few clients from there, and this person found me. They sent me a DM on Instagram as a byproduct, started working together that same week. It's incredible. And we've been working together. She's just completed her second, or she's going to complete her second premium payment plan package. So she's on package 2. She's getting ready to do her next package of 12 sessions. And she told me that not too long ago, her mother had gotten incredibly intoxicated and sent her a very, very long, nasty text message, basically berating her from every way under the sun. And this is a common habit of her mom, who has struggled with mental health challenges for the majority of her life, but have never actually sought out treatment or help for it because we don't do that. We don't talk about our problems. We'll just drink them away. So her mom sent her these really horrible messages. And one of the things that her mom said was, therapy isn't working. Because if therapy was actually working, you wouldn't be such a insert expletives here that I'm not going to say. And hearing her talk about that sincerely broke my heart because we get so many clients and we have so many people who work with us who have said something along the lines of, my family is attacking me, or my friends or my partner or whoever in my life has been attacking me and has been throwing my therapy in my face, telling me it's clearly not working if I'm still this way, or if therapy was working, then this would be different and that would be different. And why are you still so insecure if you're getting therapy, and whatever else the case may be. And we see all over social media the way that therapy is being weaponized. You know, terms are being inaccurately used and they're being overused, so they're really losing their meaning. People are slandering each other using therapy talk that's very unjust, inaccurate. Like, there's been so much more access to terminology and to help and to resources, and it's a really beautiful thing. But in tandem with that, there's so much harm being done on the other side of this because there's so many uneducated and not professional people just throwing their ideas out there, claiming to be a mental health practitioner or claiming to be a psychologist or claiming to be an expert, when they used YouTube and TikTok University to justify and validate a belief that they already had. And now they're giving out ideas as if that's what the data and the science and the evidence are showing, which it clearly does not. So how does all of this pertain to our listeners and what we're going to be diving into today? There's so many of us, and if you clicked on this episode, probably you included, Emilia and I have struggled with this as well. Therapy is so unbelievably life-changing if it's done correctly, but there's also been so much harm induced with it too. And what we want to dive into today is, how do you know if you're doing it correctly? How do you know if you're actually getting the help that you really need? And how do you protect yourself from the people who might throw their beliefs and ideas at you about what your therapy should look like and what you should be getting from it?
You know what's interesting is that I bet, I would put money on this, that client is actually responding to her mother's obscene text messages while underneath the influence. She's actually responding to those differently. And ironically, the way in which she responds is a representation of her progress. Whereas maybe before, she might not have responded the way in which she is now. And I think it's the irony of shining light on really who isn't in getting treatment and who isn't getting help and who isn't getting support and who isn't doing the work, which is ironically in this case, her mother. And we see that a lot, and unfortunately, this growth journey, we call it playfully the growth journey. And we spoke on this, Bianca, on an Instagram Live recently, where we share some of the stories and some of the challenges that we see in our private practice, and really some of those challenges that come alongside of, naturally, the individual journey that therapy or coaching, you embark upon. And one of the big components that we talked about, was how do you know when you are getting better? How do you know, what that experience is like? And a lot of that has to do with the level setting of expectations and recognizing who not to turn to in efforts to understand and get a relatively helpful and objective gauge on what progress actually does look like. And we are talking about how if we're turning towards those people who quote unquote care about us the most, and I'm putting air quotes on this for anyone who's not watching us on YouTube or any other platform, I put air quotes on that because the people who care about us most, or that we would like to think and believe that care about us the most, are our family, right? And our friends and our family. However, our friends and family actually hold a bias towards us not growing. And it's kind of paradoxical in that, meaning that when you go and embark upon a growth journey, be it seeking treatment for a mental health challenge, or, wanting to manage and cope with stress or grief or loss, or even just one of the other primary reasons why people go and start and get into therapy is because just you want to go on a personal growth and development journey, or you want to tell yourself a story of that and you're struggling with something else. Now, when you go about doing that and you actually do start experiencing change and you are starting to respond, either the behaviors of the way in which you're emotionally processing, or even just the thought dynamics and how in which you're making decisions and interacting with the humans that are used to your old patterning, and you are gauging them as the mirror of your progress, oftentimes when you put that measurement system or that yardstick in the hands of those individuals, those are the people who are not going to want to see change the most. Why? Because it sheds light on where they're not changing, on what they're not working through, and what they're not going to get and seeking help, support, treatment, and growth on. And so if we're just looking at our friends and our family as to the people who are going to validate our progress the most, we are actually doing ourselves more often than not a disservice. Why? Because for them to actually admit that you're growing and changing takes a lot out of a human being who is not growing and changing themselves. Now, what I think is the 3 times removed rule is actually really helpful. So usually it's not your friends, usually it's not your family, because they just want to see what keeps you the same, right? So that's that bias in real time. Which is where their weaponizing of what they're not seeing change is coming to the fold. But usually it's those people that you'll see every couple of months that end up actually being the individuals who notice how much of a change you've actually experienced. So for example, I have a client who is a business owner, and it's the people on the day-to-day that don't see the change, and hence why they're so quick to kind of represent you haven't changed or you're not making progress or weaponizing the therapy against them. He said there was a customer that comes around every single time, the summer comes around, and they were in here last year, and she had said to me, like, holy crap, you're a totally different person. Now, if you were to ask the people who are working right next to me, my coworkers, my colleagues, because the change is so incremental, it's not necessarily anything that they could point to. But this woman who came around and saw me in comparison to the last year, she said, you're an entirely different person. And I think that it's the person who's thrice removed from your life, that's not on your inner circle, but it's the individuals who can see you from a little bit of afar. They're the individuals that couldn't possibly weaponize your progress against you because they have nothing to lose or gain, hence the bias, as a result of your growth. So let's talk about this, because this is a very common challenge that anyone who's embarking upon the growth journey is experiencing. Their social support systems will be forced to change or will be forced to navigate the aftermath of change, whether or not they choose to weaponize that change against these people who embark upon the growth journey is a result of their own level of growth and development.
We are not naive to the fact that a lot of people might even hear an episode like this and weaponize it. I mean, there's a lot of Emilia and I work with a lot of people. I have almost 60 clients that I see like every week. I mean, I see a lot of clients on the week to week, and Emilia has a lot as well in tandem with everything else that she does. And we have a lot of clients who have their abusers or other abusers in their lives who go to therapy, and their therapist tells them one thing and they're getting told another, or people are using ChatGPT as their therapist, or they're finding content online that aligns with the narrative that they are trying to get. And they might hear us say that, like, oh, well, it's not going to be the people around me who see it, so, it's not me, it's you. Like, even things like that, there's so many of us need validation, and we're actually going to be doing an episode, it's going to be number 448, on what real validation looks like. So few of us have ever had real validation, but too many of us are getting inaccurately validated. And we're getting a lot of really harmful and destructive people are getting validation for their harmful and destructive ideas. Like, I have a client right now. She is being abused by her partner, and her partner is in therapy, and even his therapist said your behavior is unacceptable. He just stopped going to her. And now he's using ChatGPT to validate the points he's making, and is basically sending her what ChatGPT told her that she needs to start doing, because she's gaslighting him and she's manipulating him. And it's her fault that he's doing the things that he's doing, because I asked you to give me grace and you didn't, for the destructive behaviors that he's doing. So we are not naive to the fact that someone might hear an episode like this and it might be the validation for them too. It's unfortunately, it's par for the course. So that is not who we're talking to in this episode. We are talking to the people who have been in therapy and are really trying to make changes for themselves because they want to be better. Maybe they are victims of abuse. Maybe they have struggled deeply with insecurities. Maybe you've struggled significantly with self-talk or with challenging relationship dynamics and so on and so forth. And the people in your life can't see the changes that you have made because they are so deeply enmeshed in your life. Like, I have a client who has a lot of significant family trauma, and his family is basically all in collusion, which basically means they're all in secret agreement that we don't talk about dad and his destructive behavior. We don't talk about the fact that mom didn't protect any of us because she was too scared of him. We're just going to pretend it never happened. And the fact that you're so angry about it, and the fact that you're still having emotions about it, what's wrong with you? Therapy clearly must not be working, because why are you so angry still? Why are you so upset still? Like, you should be over it if therapy was actually working. What?
Whoa.
These are the kinds of things that we are seeing on the day-to-day. And if you clicked on this episode, you're probably going through that too. So we want to equip you with, number one, a deep understanding of what does progress even really look like? Like, what's the point of therapy? What does progress in therapy look like? And how can you really not show this to others, but like, how can you feel that sense of validation and certainty within yourself that you really are making progress, so that when someone says something to you, you have that certainty within you of, they can say whatever they want, but I have the receipts for me. I know what I've done. I know the growth that I've made.
Yeah. Another thing too, where this is coming to mind because I've seen this happen a lot too, is individuals will go to therapy or get coaching or like do certain things because they have to, otherwise they're going to lose something. So for example, you and I have had someone come to our practice and try to go under the guise of, I really am doing this for me, when only to find out 3 months later it was because they were trying to gather receipts of pretending that they were actually showing up only so that they could hold that receipt up against in a court of law to try to take custody of their children, when in reality they actually were just there for confirming what they want to believe about themselves instead of actual change. I've also seen in not just our practice, but I've seen this in other experiences as well, where people will come to therapy so that they can show the receipt after maybe like 2 or 3 months saying that they've changed so that their partner sticks around. Or same thing, they'll go to therapy or coaching or get support, make microbial progress, and then they're quote unquote done. And just to give the receipt to their sibling of like, well, I already had done therapy and I had gone to therapy and I'm all set and I'm done now, right? Like I had gone, as if it's like a one and done thing. Where when we talk about progress and we talk about weaponization of progress, I think that it's a really interesting topic from my perspective around the psychology, because a lot of it has to do with our belief of what progress is, and it is really subjective. That's why these waters can get really murky. And so you might even have someone in your life, dear listener, that is like, well, I already went to therapy and I've graduated and I'm done. And yet they're still an emotional child and they can't even go near a conversation with you. I'm sure we all have someone that's like that is coming to mind. And again, I don't want to weaponize therapy, and I don't want to place hate or anything on individuals like that. Like, I just want to have a conversation so that we can be more reflective. And like you said, Bianca, so that we can look at, what does progress mean? What does therapy mean for us? Why are we going to it? What are the motivations? And how can we honor that sacred trek? Because I do believe therapy is therapeutic, and it is a sacred journey for each and every single person who on their own conviction goes upon. It is a journey. It is a walk that is so sacred that if it is a personal desire to change, to evolve, to show up for themselves, it's so sacred that when it does become weaponized, it is alarming and very jarring. And so I want to help honor that trek. And let's say, for example, someone showed up and decided to start to get therapy because they experienced or they were going through a loss, but then they decided to stick around because of the benefits and who they've become. And then someone tries to weaponize their trek as like, not like something's wrong with them or something's broken. Like we've seen that too. So we've seen it all. And I really think what's important in this dialogue is to open up the lid. We all now have some general understandings of how therapy in and of self has become weaponized, how technology, and unfortunately, what we're really hovering over is what's called confirmation bias, which is when we believe something, we find the evidence and or we go and get the evidence, the receipts to be able to confirm what we already believed, not the opposite, which is anyone that's coming to evolve, and that really is a true evolver at heart. They are going into the journey full well knowing that their belief system will get like obliterated in a way. And that is a good thing, because what they want to stand after, what they want to reconstruct, is a more healthy, more adaptive, more constructive, more empowering belief system that doesn't confirm what they already thought, believed to themselves about themselves, other people in the world. It's one that's more objective, more accurate, more useful, et cetera, that helps them and the world around them become a better person and be a better place to live in. And so a true evolver at heart understands that going into therapy or going into coaching, going on that trek, is very much a sacred journey where you define what that meaning is. And then you work with your practitioner or the guides that you equip to be on that journey with you, help demarcate what progress actually looks like. What are the key performance indicators or the objectives that are at hand in entering upon this track. And now I've heard, Bianca, people say to me, well, I don't really know what I want, Emilia. I don't really have goals. I don't even know where to start because this is such an unfamiliar territory. So I'm okay with kind of just like leaving it up to kind of like this wishy-washy, open-ended. Now, I hear those individuals because sometimes that can feel constricting to be able to define what a goal for therapy or what a goal for coaching or whatever your unique trek is, out of fear of being too constrained, right? I know that that can really cage some people and feel really constraining. However, if you are with a quality practitioner that really does care about you and what your definition of progress means to you, that practitioner will at the very least ask you, what are your goals? What are your objectives? What brings you here? What does it mean to you to make progress? What could that progress look like? What has your past experiences been? And they want a general understanding of what is this idea that has been constructed either by you or by your social family, your people, et cetera, that influence you, of what progress and meaningful progress looks like to you. And so Bianca, we can talk about what we do at Evolve, certain things that we do. But we make sure that no matter who enters in the door at Evolve, we make sure that that is at the very least one of the starting conversations that we have, which is understanding, what has the history been? What has your experience in therapy been? What has your experience in this trek been? Have you already been to certain things? What has worked? What hasn't worked? What's been challenging? What's uncomfortable? Where are you at? What are the goals? And what is the most meaningful elements of progress? And how would you define that? So that when you, not if, when you have someone trying to gaslight you, maybe about your own progress, you have the ability to look back at your own receipts because you were the one that co-created the trek of this journey right alongside your practitioner. And there's so many ways to do that. So we at Evolve are very data-driven. Bianca and I'm such a tech nerd. Bianca has become a tech nerd over time. She mentioned playfully in a former podcast episode that we have spreadsheets for everything. And because we are naturally inclined towards data-driven decision-making, there are so many different metrics that we track with our clients and that we encourage our clients to track. Now, you might not think of spreadsheets when you think of therapy, but one of the ways in which we do help clients understand their own progress points are logs or ways in which they could be tracking. And journaling has been a way in which you can track what progress means to you. So one of the things, Bianca, you and I have both mentioned is looking back at old journals. When you can track down your thoughts just by a journaling practice, or let's say you are trying to improve your concentration, your stress modulation, you can track your Apple Watch the times in which you've actually practiced your yoga or your meditation or your breath work. You can look at the time to which you've actually gone into and done the behaviors that help you improve in the areas that are meaningful for you. There's always data that you can point to. And so there's all sorts of different metrics. And I think that maybe sharing a few that you've found to be helpful to help, quote unquote, gather the receipts? Not that you need them, but just so that you as a listener can consider what does honor your path, so that you don't have he or she or they who weaponize your trek against you. You know what's real, you know what's true, and you know what progress looks like for you. You don't need someone else to validate it. What have you found, Bianca? How do you want to contribute to this conversation in that realm of data tracking, all that happy jazz?
One of the things that I love doing with clients is journaling prompts and exercises. So if you're a client of mine, you've heard me say, do you have your journal with you? And they all have this snap moment because they forget it half the time. I think it's subconscious avoidance, but it is what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
But some of them do. Sometimes they're like, oh my God, I forgot. Let me go grab it.
Mm-hmm.
So I make sure that in sessions with clients, I will walk them step by step through prompts and exercises and activities to do. So it might be an assessment where there's actually a number score given at the end of the assessment, where we can see what are the challenges that you're having at what intensity, frequency, and duration. And then you see an actual decrease in the number over time. So the intensity score. So let's say someone's struggling with depression. There's 2 different forms that I will use. One of them is called the BDI, the Beck Depression Inventory, the 2nd edition of it. Another one is called the PHQ-9, the Patient Health Quotient 9. So there's 9 questions on that one. I think there's 21 or 23 on the BDI too. And it asks 9 or 21 or 23 questions. And it's on a 0 to 3 scale. So 0 is not at all. 3 is nearly every day. The BDI, they're ranked a little bit differently, but it doesn't really matter.
So look at us getting all technical. All right. Love it.
With every data.
We're obsessed with data at Evolve. We really are. And not in like the gross way of like, we're gonna sell your data. Like, we actually, what we love is that data are progress points that help us understand our own growth journey, and the data points help us understand the trend line, which is what we care about.
Right. So during every single
is our nerd showing? I think
data. Emilia and I, at the start of every client experience, we go through an intake process. And part of that intake process is doing those assessments and gathering data and information. And then over the span of the therapy work together, we will reassess them. That's one really good way to measure progress. Did your scores go down? Now, in the journaling prompts that I do, I will have clients and I will literally make them journal in the session answers to questions that I ask. Or let's do a behavioral experiment where there's this situation that you're going to go into. What are your concerns about the situation? What is the situation? Who's going to be there? What might happen? How can we prep in advance to make sure it doesn't happen? Okay, what actually did happen? Now what can you learn from it? I've had clients write out things that they want to say to the people in their life and what cognitive distortions are coming up in here, and have them actually write them out and identify it. So all of these are data points so that later on when we do similar activities, there's an actual tangible difference in their own handwriting of, oh my God, this is what I was struggling with 6 months ago. Look at how well I approached this situation this time. Look at what I'm now capable of doing instead. Oh my God, last time I had 7 cognitive distortions and they were kind of at a level 10. I only had maybe 1 or 2 come out this time. Right. Whoa. I was able to have a really hard conversation with this person using the NVC model, and last time I had to write it out word for word and read it. This time I didn't even need to write it down. It just came into my head and I could just think about it and say it. that is just some of the ways that we measure progress here at Evolve. We have actual data and actual receipts of real growth and real change, so that not your family sees it and whoever, because you, like for you need to see it first. And then if you want to, you can show them if they're capable of even recognizing that as growth, which a lot of them don't. But it's a beautiful piece of evidence for you to see your own progress.
Yeah, really is. One question that I've started to kind of ask newer clients in this chapter of who we are at Evolve is the question of like, who's going to be impacted by your growth, right? Who do you care about that's going to be impacted by your growth? Because that question essentially is fleshing out, like, who are you unconsciously looking to validate your growth and the impact of that? And it's just helpful for me to understand who are their unconscious social managers, being very mindful of trying to make sure that they validate their growth. Because oftentimes when we don't, and I've run into this many times with clients that, let's say, for example, aren't on my SEAL team level version of my coaching program, which is like, let me see all the data. So give me access to your Aura Ring scores, like help me understand your sleep scores. We understand your mood tracking. Like we're doing literally tracking of all your vital metrics that help me inform not just how your biometrics are mapping over the day to day, but also what, like, let's get behind the wheel of the emotions, the thought process, et cetera, et cetera. So picture Emilia live feed in understanding in the overlapping of all these datas. Those individuals who are giving me full reign access, we can really see how is that growth, the receipts, translating to the progress that is meaningful for you. And should you ever want or ever have a moment where someone else that you care about isn't seeing your growth, that's okay, because the data is right there for you to take a look at. Now, individuals who don't necessarily do the outputs of tracking those components, right? They might not have health trackers. They might not have journaling prompts. They might not be writing things down. The bare minimum is going back to your text log, because the text log between you and other people is a great indicator of what your thought process snapshot is. And the last thing that you can look to is also the pictures, and how you take pictures is how you're capturing memories. And I find that if we were all to go through our photo logs, it would tell us a lot about our level of consciousness and our progress, our level of progress, because all of us can go back, Spotify playlists, we've talked about this before, are receipts of who we are in that very one singular moment. So when we create a playlist, it's us creating a level of consciousness, is like snapshot in time. In our photo memory album, the way in which we capture certain things to help us remember or create meaningful receipts is a great indicator of helping us understand, okay, maybe I'm not tracking all my vitals. Maybe I'm not habit tracking. Maybe I'm not doing the journaling. Maybe I'm not doing all these things, but that is always a great indicator. And humans are predisposed to obviously have chat logs because we're always socially communicating, or there's always photos that we're taking here or there. And that is a really great indicator. So when people want to say that you're not making progress, it's really not for the people to determine what progress looks like. And I think that we all need a reminder while we're on this growth journey, because, right, we're so predisposed and conditioned and systemically ingrained to have other people validate what is real. And I want to invite all of our listeners to consider what is real is based on what you give meaning to, what you give reality to. So whether it's this client that we mentioned earlier, whose mother is on a drunken bender slandering one's progress, or another client whose coworkers just don't see that much progress because of the fact that they're literally side by side and they don't even realize that they're growing right next to them. Everyone's at a different chapter in their growth journey. And it's the question of what determines progress for you? What is progress? What is the tangibility of progress for you? What are the intangibles of your milestone that you're looking for when you do get in a growth journey? And if you don't have those clarified, even on the small micro level, there's always some way in which you can determine what progress looks and feels like and what your goals are for therapy and coaching. And if you're struggling with that, please just DM Bianca or myself, because going in without anything allows and practically invites the people around you to have you question your own inputs. And that is just not a fun place to be. We've seen people in there. And so you can proactively equip yourself so that therapy is not being weaponized against you. And we are more than happy to help you in your individual journey do that. So we're a DM away. All right. With that being said, I think that's my that's my closing sentiment. My episode suggestion is 422. Are you living by someone else's standards? I think enough said there. Bianca?
398, a powerful way to never be manipulated again. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We are a DM away. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.